My Mount Rushmore for dumbest fucking statements ever mentioned in the NBA. Dennis Schroeder is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'll add 2 fucking heads. I'll add a 6. That's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever fucking read in my life. Look.
Tell us how you really feel. Welcome to Bogues. Another week of basketball shenanigans. Pro's ready for a spiel already. Just off camera, was already fired up with everything going on in the world of Dallas. They're still protesting at the front of, is that American Airlines still? What the hell is that place called, Pro?
America Airlines Center. Great airline, by the way. Yeah. Still protesting. Nico Harrison has to get security, which is a fucking joke, folks. Like, where are we in society where, like, a guy... Look, I didn't think the trade was great, even though it does have some value. It's not awful, but it's not great. But you don't threaten a guy's family and things like that.
Yeah, death
and
threats
you don't
is
threaten
a bit
him
much.
personally.
That's just ridiculous.
That's the guy's job. You know what I'm saying? Look, regardless if he's right or if he's wrong, like, the guy made a move. And what are you going to do?
With his ownership's blessing, of course. Let's not forget that. This doesn't happen if
the ownership had to sign off on it.
Yeah, no doubt.
They had to sign off on it. But you don't threaten somebody's family and livelihood. Like, you know, I don't know. I don't mind the little shenanigans of, like, bringing in the coffin and stuff like that, because it's like WWF-ish. Like, it's a little bit funny. But when you're talking about threats to somebody's, you know, threaten somebody's life off a move, looks, this isn't your fantasy team. This isn't, you know, you get fired up over your fantasy team. I get it. You get fired up over your team. And I understand you nurture Luka, all that stuff. You drafted him, ups and downs, conference final. I get it, all that stuff. But you don't threaten the guy's livelihood. But even on top of that happened in Dallas that I'm fucking pissed off about, is Jock Landale, our fucking guy.
No, right? He didn't hit you up.
He hit me up. We supposed to get together, and he's got a 19 straight game Dallas streak of not fucking hanging out with me or not. I mean, he is one of my favorite clients of all time, but that Jake Paul lookalike motherfucker fucked me and didn't reach out to me. I'm not happy about this shit, man. I am not fucking. And he's fresh off at 11-10. And I'm not even gonna let you pick the Aussie of the week because he gets it. 11-10. Beat
one game. You know it says week, not game, right? Aussie of the week.
Beat the Chicago Bulls a la the Toronto Raptors by himself today. 11-10. I gotta give it to him, but that motherfucker, 19 straight fucking games in Dallas, the guy doesn't fucking hang out. Unfucking believable.
He's scared of that bill that you're gonna bring to dinner, Pro. That's what he's scared of.
I gotta look at it both ways. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Maybe he didn't have maybe he didn't have a wife beater to wear, or his mullet wasn't good enough. I don't know. But the fucker, I mean, it's gotta be a two-way street with his friendship, man.
Well, he's a busy man. He's trying to crack that rotation. They just traded for Cody Zeller too, which I don't understand. Insurance.
We'll talk about it. But I, to be honest, Bogues, I don't even think he'll even ever get there. I think they're just going to buy him out. I mean, it just doesn't see. The guy didn't play a minute for Atlanta.
It's insurance. I just see it as insurance for a Jokic or a Gobert. And, you know, they're worried about Adams' durability. He's obviously got some injury issues. So maybe just that third big, but it's just a strange
Alpi went down today, Bogues.
Yeah,
with like a back or something.
Yeah, he's been in and out. He's been in and out, but Adams is the big one.
Trent, what happened what happened to that today? Yeah.
All right, let's get to my team of the week, and it pains me to say this is the Los Angeles Lakers, Pro. They've won 5 straight.
The same one.
They've won 5 straight. Yeah, they're with that roster, like they're a little depleted because of the trade. They're waiting to get some health back, but you know they win 5 straight. Lose Davis, haven't got Luka back yet, and I think you probably agree that they'd probably struggle until Luka comes back in the lineup a little bit, just with their depth, but. Man, they win at Washington, they win at New York in a big one, they win at the Clippers, and they beat Golden State and Indiana, and they have some cupcakes coming up. They have Utah back-to-back, they have Charlotte, they have Portland until they have Denver on the road, which they'll probably lose that one or it'll be a closer game, but they could win 9 or 10 straight, and just playing good basketball. LeBron's playing really well, and yeah, I mean, I was surprised. I thought they'd struggle to trade water till Luka comes back, and reportedly going to be back very soon as well. They're saying pre-All-Star break. I don't know about that, but
Tomorrow. I think he's going to come up tomorrow.
Okay.
United States time.
So that's interesting. But yeah, they're playing really good basketball, and getting Luka Doncic in the lineup, I think, will only cement the fact that they're a legit chance to stay in that top 4, top 5 race, which I probably, I have to eat my own words. I definitely didn't have them there anywhere close to the start of the season.
Before we get into this, Sengun went out with an apparent back injury. The team hasn't reported officially on what is going on.
That ain't great. That ain't great with his body. That ain't great. Because he's not shaped. He's not shaped. He's shaped like Grimace, and that's from McDonald's back in the day, and that's not a good. When
those guys usually don't have back
issues.
Usually, it's the taller, leaner guys. It's usually the Grimaces have that, that stomach strength. As you know, do you have back issues, bro?
No, but maybe the ham burglar put a banana down and slipped and fell. So who the fuck knows? But it's tough. No lower back. I get everything else hurts, folks, but not the back's pretty good. Knock on wood.
The feet take a beating. Yeah, okay.
The feet take a beating for sure. The joints there, but hey, look, they've been playing great for sure. We give JJ Redick a lot of shit on the show, busting balls and stuff, but the guy has kept it together pretty well. They have played well up to this point, and Austin Reeves had a great game, 45 against Indiana, just playing out of his mind with that, and it was tough because you're right, depleted roster, the whole connect thing, which we'll talk about in the trade segment, the rescinded trade with Charlotte for Mark Williams. But I mean, look, you're missing, you don't have obviously AD and Christie. You don't, I think LeBron was out one of those games in the last few. So it's, you didn't expect that, but they've been playing well. Like you said, 5 straight. I think Luka comes back tomorrow, which my fantasy team is, even though he's been out, I need a lift. So I'm fucking glad he's finally, I'm finally going to lace it up tomorrow. That should be interesting, but I'd be interested to see how they're going to ramp him up. I mean, do they play him full minutes? I would assume minute restriction if I had to guess, but who knows? It's look, they're in interesting times, because they're going to get, they're going to get somebody out of the buyout market. Obviously, Ben Simmons signing with the Clippers. They're not going to get him, and they're into the apron. I think the first level of the apron, if I'm not mistaken, at least. So they're not eligible to sign like Middleton or some of these higher end guys, high salary guys. If you're over the mid-level exception, if somebody's over the mid-level exception and gets paid over that and gets bought out, all the teams in the apron are not eligible to sign those players. So only people under the apron could sign those guys. So I'm sure they're going to get somebody, one if not two, 2 players out of that. And the weird thing is going to be dealing with the connect thing going forward, because obviously they dealt them in a trade, and now it's past trade deadline, and they can't readjust the trade. They got to stick with them for the rest of the season, which is good for their depth, but it'll be interesting. But yeah, they played well for sure. You
had them as well, yeah?
Well, I was going to have them. I thought you were going to take Houston for some reason, no, I did take the Dallas Mavericks. 2 in a row, comes in.
We can co-sign the Lakers. Yeah, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, post-trade, they come in a little shorthanded, no AD, and they beat Boston in Boston. And, they beat Houston. I think they beat Houston yesterday. So, yeah, they played well for sure. My guy, Max Christie, I think he's averaging about 18 a game for those guys in the first 2 games. He's been playing great. Klay Thompson's had some decent run. Anthony Davis, huge game yesterday for those guys, even though he left a little bit early with an injury. But I like their energy. Look, J Kidd's got those guys playing. Everybody's killing them in the trade, and I get it with this whole deal, but I mean, they are still pretty good. You get a guy who's probably in the top 12, top 13 players in the NBA, and you put him with Kyrie Irving, who's been playing great this year, 24, 4, and 5, with that, hopefully that bench could navigate a little bit. They are hurting a little bit on that regard.
Good guard depth. They're real good guard depth, they do. I think. Exum, Dinwiddie,
Exum looks a little heavy. I know he's been out for a while, but hopefully he can get into some shape. His body doesn't look great, but he's been out all year with that. But you're right. They've got Exum, they got Christie, Dinwiddie, Exum, Hardy, those are 4 guys there. And then, Quentin Grimes, I think I don't know if I mentioned him or not, but, they've got a bunch of guards, they're bigs. They're probably going to play Gafford and Davis together a little bit, that Cleveland big lineup. And then you got PJ Washington you could throw in there. Dwight Powell's been out, but I mean, you could still throw him in as a 5th big. So, I mean, they'll be a tough out for sure, Bogues. I know they're getting a lot of heat on the trade and everything, but at least in the short term, having a healthy AD and putting them with that lineup and that roster, they're gonna be pretty good. And then, Christie off the bench, shot making, and just being able to durability and defense, they're gonna be tough.
Grimes actually went to Philly for Caleb Barton.
Oh shoot, I forgot about that
one. Yeah, it was just
trade deadline.
Single deal trade. All right, no, my team of the week, my week team was Houston. No, they weren't my team of the week. They were
okay.
They had a pretty subpar week. I mean, they did win just today, I think, against Toronto, just scraped by 94-87, but they lost 6 straight before that, Pro. They lost to Memphis, which is fair enough. They lost to Memphis by a point, but they lost to Brooklyn twice in that span. That's unacceptable. They lost versus Brooklyn, home and home. They lost at New York. They lost at Minnesota. Lost at Dallas. So you could argue some tough teams mixed in there, but you got to get 1 or 2 of those Brooklyn games. They looked a bit clunky. I mean, they've had a great start to the year for the most part. Top 2, top 3 Western Conference team. I think honeymoon period's over. It's the grind time. They got a few injuries, lineup changes. Adams in and out now. Sengun in and out. Jock's going to get some minutes, of course, but I think they were the one team that I think struggled the most over the last week to 10 days that just couldn't get some wins together. And their roster doesn't get any easier. I mean, they got Phoenix. They got a somewhat revitalized Golden State with Jimmy, and then Minnesota. And then at Utah, so they got a couple of tough games coming up. It'll be interesting how they finish before All-Star, especially with the Phoenix Golden State back to back. But they're my week this week.
Yeah, Bogues, I really had a hard time figuring out team of the week this week. Just a bunch of the teams that I thought lost a couple of games here and there, but they lost to some pretty good teams. I agree with you with the Houston Rockets. Look, like most teams that are dominated by some of the younger players, Jalen Green and Halpy Sengun, like I think Amin Thompson has actually been playing really well. The last month or so, he's been playing great. I think the biggest thing for them, Bogues, is shot selection. You look at they're talented as hell, they're athletic as hell, but they gotta just defend, offensively, just the shots, early shot clock, tough contested shots they love taking. They got to sort of dial into their shot selection, just move the ball, get to the rim, get open shots, as many as they can get, and then on the defensive side of the things, they just, a lot of just like miscommunications, bad matchups, just, fouling when they shouldn't foul. Look, you're going to go through some growing pains. Obviously, they're an improving team, and they're probably one of the most improved teams this season. If for them and the Memphis Grizzlies, they just got to figure things out. They, especially when you're undermanned a little bit. Guys got to step up. Guys got to really step up past their role a little bit, but they got to stay in the team concept of good shot selection, coming at you, energy, good defense, and just moving the ball. And I think, look, they've got enough talent to do it. They just have to sort of understand what's really important, how winning teams win. And that's the one thing about being really good this year, and sort of taking everybody by storm. They still got to go through the experience of battling through losing streaks and not playing well. And, just having, like I said, just energy, defense, moving the ball, great shots, and we'll go from there. But yeah, I agree with you. They were a little underwhelming in the last week or 10 days or so.
And we'll give you a pass this week if you don't have anyone. But yeah, Houston were really the only ones for me. And we got a shitload of stuff to go through with all the trade stuff. So I'll go through those now, Pro. If as I'm going, if you want to get into one, let me know. But there's a shitload to go through.
Why don't you just, Bogues, why don't you pick a few to get really into that you think are really important? We'll talk about that. And then
I'll just go through
and then
them
you
top
can
to
just
bottom,
list the
and
rest.
We'll discuss a few. So the Wizards acquire Marcus Smart. So Marcus Smart, Colby Jones, Alex Len, 25 first-round pick. Goes to the Wizards for Bagley the third, Johnny Davis, 2 second-round picks. I mean, smart out of the rotation in Grizzly with Memphis for the most part. I thought he'd help him with their grit and grind style, but he's been moved on. Kings also received Jake LaRavia via the Grizzlies, which was an interesting one. So I like the way he was playing.
Yeah, this trade, look, it's not something that, it's not the first one we'll talk about, but I as far as like, wow, we got to talk about this one. But the LaRavia was really interesting to me.
I thought he was nice.
Yeah, especially how great he's been playing for them.
Young energy.
I mean, he's they give him up. Now maybe it's a salary thing. They don't want to re-up the deal, going down the road. But like, he's played great for them. I thought he had a lot to do with their success coming off the bench, and the players they got back for them. Look, Marcus Smart's bad. It's bad enough you have to lose him, the defense and things, and then you lose LaRavia, but then you come back with like Marvin Bagley Jr., a couple of second-round picks. That to me, it was just it didn't really make sense in my opinion as far as how he's been playing. And then LaRavia, just let me check. Yeah, I mean, he's at $3 million, $3.35 million. And then he's got a team option for 5-1. I mean, a rotation player for $3 million is. You got to jump on that. It's a great move by Stack.
100%. Yeah, I like his game. He plays hard, can shoot it. Does all the right things for him. So that was the only interesting part to me in this trade was giving him up. All right, the Raptors land Brandon Ingram. Pelicans receive Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, first-round pick, second-round pick. This was interesting because Brandon Ingram reportedly. I don't know if it was made public, but Utah wanted him, and they were willing to offer him the max, I think, a year or two ago, right? Or through my avenues, that's what I was told through some people that know that situation. He didn't want to go to Utah. Now he's stuck in limbo. He's out in purgatory up in Toronto, who are in a full rebuild. But a great piece for them. I think he's a great player. Injuries have been an issue. I think he can be a good guy to have next to All Barnes, some length and athleticism, but he's completely missed the boat with the way, I guess, he's handled his contract situation. He was the next in line to get a max deal, be solidified somewhere, and it hasn't worked out. Obviously New Orleans bringing in McCollum and bringing in Murray changed things for the direction they were going, and I think now he's got to reprove himself again. And with that, you got the injuries. So the Pelicans they receive some decent role players for it. They shed some salary. Well, they try to shed some salary with Ingram and not being able to pay him in the future. So it makes sense. They didn't want to pay him. You can go. See you later. And I think he's got 1 year left on his deal, I believe, right?
He's got just this year. Ingram's got just this year.
He's expiring
$33 million.
Yeah, so complete expiring. Yeah. So yeah, he's now got to go to a shitty team, prove himself if he can even stay there. If not, get a deal from somewhere else.
Look, you can get a deal. He definitely can do that. But I feel as though, look, Toronto's terrible, no doubt about it, right? But they do have some decent pieces with RJ Barrett, Quickly Barrett. You got Grady Dick there, who's inconsistent but not bad. And then Jacob Podol, and now Jacoby Walters, one of the better rookies, probably the top 5 or 6 rookie from last year's draft. And then Ochai Akbai, who's been playing well and 10-4. But like, I think it's look, he can get paid there. He is a player. Look, no one really wants to go to Toronto as far as big name guys. It's a great city. You got a team that's really not ready to win yet, but you've got these young guys that'll be second-year guys. RJ Barrett's been playing really well. It's not a bad deal, for him. He could probably get a max out of it, because they'll get his bird rights. It'll be an interesting deal going forward. But look, he can go. I'm sure there'll be a few places that want to pay him a lot, but it's actually a pretty good spot for him. Masai is one of the better GMs in the league. They got a young coach who's not bad, who really works hard at it. He may look at it and be like, they're not a dysfunctional bunch. Like, you don't read about it like you read about New Orleans, about this, that, and the other thing. Like, Toronto's just not very good. They traded everybody away. Yeah, they got all these young players they're building around again. I think he'd be a great piece there, but he can name his price and go to a few spots if he could just stay healthy and stay with it. Look, he's been a really good player in the last few years. Just that whole New Orleans contract thing got in the way. And look, you know how it is, Bogues. It's sometimes it just doesn't work, and you say some things you don't want to say, and it just sort of it gets in the way of things, and it is what it is. But I think Toronto could be good. I think it'd be a good two-way street with that relationship there.
Yeah. I'd be interested to see if he stays long term. If that's obviously they've probably got some mind of keeping him long term if they can. But next to Barnes, it could work. The big one that happened.
Barnes. That's right.
Yeah, the big one post the Luka one was the Warriors acquire Jimmy Butler from the Heat. Now, this is a bit long-winded, so bear with me. There's a lot of teams involved with this, but the Warriors received Jimmy Butler, 2 second-round picks via Miami and cash from Miami Heat. The Miami Heat receive Andrew Wiggins, Kyle Anderson, Davion Mitchell from the Raptors, a 25 protected first-round pick. Jazz get involved and they get Josh Richardson via the Heat, KJ Martin from the Pistons via the Sixers, 28 second-round pick, 31 second-round pick and some cash. Pistons receive Lindy Waters III, Dennis Schroeder from the Jazz via the Warriors, 2031 second-round pick via Warriors, and the Raptors receive PJ Tucker from the Jazz, 22nd second-round pick and cash considerations. Now, before we get into the trade, the Dennis Schroeder thing is interesting, Pro, because he likened the NBA trade period to slavery, and within 2 days was traded.
3 times.
Yeah, which was very interesting. Which is just you think about who's in some of these players' ears to liken a league you're playing in where there's $50-60 million contracts per year. Well, you sign up to play in that league full well knowing that you can get traded on a whim. That's the harsh part of the business, but it is part of the business. It's why you're compensated at a high level. To liken that to slavery was mind-boggling, and then to solidify his point, he just happens to get traded a couple of days later, Pro. But yeah, the trade itself, I think Miami did really well with this. I mean, they get a first-round pick by the Warriors. I think Wiggins is a good piece for Miami. I mean, the Wiggins Adebayo defensive lineup, I think, is something I'm intrigued to see. I think Wiggins is a very, very good perimeter defender. You got Adebayo now back there as well, who's an elite defender. Can get streaky offensively. Wiggins, Anderson, just a solid veteran. Davion Mitchell, perfect Miami Heat guy in my opinion. Gets up the floor, can defend, energy guy. So I think the Heat did really well. Jimmy's going to be interesting to see how that goes. I know they won their first game and came back from a big deficit against Chicago, but and I saw Dunleavy was actually interviewed during a game about that trade, and one thing I liked that he said was we identified where a poor get to the free throw line team. We just don't get to the free throw line enough, and Jimmy's going to fix that. And I think in Jimmy's first game, he had 11 or 12 free throw attempts, so that has fixed that problem. What it doesn't fix is I don't think it provides much space for Steph. Like, you got Draymond and Jimmy out there that aren't three-point shooters. I think you're going to see some lineups that Steve's going to go to in nut crunching time, in vital time, where you're going to have Draymond at the 5 and Jimmy at the 4. That's the only way I can see this working long term. Because if you have Jimmy at the 3, Draymond at the 4, and maybe Davis at the 5, Steph's going to be just running in circles trying to get open. There's not going to be much space on that floor, and you're going to dare. I remember we played Team USA in 2016 Rio. We had Jimmy Butler as the leave guy from 3. We were like, leave him. If he knocks down shots against us and knocks down some threes, we lose the game. So be it. We're happy to have him shooting 5 threes that are wide open rather than any of those other guys shooting contested threes. So over the course of the season, it will be interesting, but he does bring some toughness and does bring some free throw attempts. But pretty big trade for all teams involved. And then obviously a couple of those bad teams get involved to just shed some salary and take some younger guys.
Yeah, it's interesting, Bogues. First of all, the Schroeder thing. I don't really get into catchphrases, but I've never said this in my life, because I'm not a big fan of GOAT. I've never said GOAT in my life, except if I'm going to the zoo and feeding them. And the second thing I'd never say is my Mount Rushmore. My Mount Rushmore for dumbest fucking statements ever mentioned in the NBA. Dennis Schroeder is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'll add 2 fucking heads. I'll add a 6. That's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever fucking read in my life. Look, he hasn't been a great teammate. Obviously, there's a million stories about Dennis Schroeder. There was a million stories coming in the draft about him. About sometimes he's just radioactive. You don't want to deal with the kid. He's been on more teams than I like to, that I frequent fucking fast food restaurants in a week. The guy's been in a million teams for a reason. All right. There's something about him that people just don't like. And when you say things like that, you're paid unbelievably well to be in this league. All right. And this is just goes with it. And it's not only players, it's staff too. Staff has to deal with the same shit. They don't have to deal with getting traded. All right. But they have to deal with movement and things like that. That's just part of it. You get a ridiculous amount of money to compete, to produce. And if you can do both of those things, you'll probably stay on 1 or 2, maybe 3 teams in a 15-year career, or you'll play 17 fucking teams and your best friend is your real estate agent. That's what he does. And he says stupid stuff like this, and it's just not bright. Anyways, that being said,
tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, the whole Miami Golden State factor with the trade. Look, Andrew Wiggins is probably, Andrew Wiggins is a guy that wants to be in Miami, I assume, right? He's not Jimmy, and Jimmy's great until it ends. It's just typical NBA. He's in your city until he's not, and then when he's not, it's just a really ugly, bad breakup. It's like a bad Seinfeld episode, and it's just sort of what it is. Like Jimmy Butler brings toughness, probably a little bit more consistency than Andrew Wiggins to Golden State. I agree with the spacing thing, but it is good to have tough guys and forces that you could just you could have on your roster. Jimmy's going to play hard on both ends of the floor. He's gonna go hard until obviously he's not happy with the situation. Then he's gonna do what he did for the last month in Miami or so. The problem that I have with the whole thing is a temper tantrum landed a guy an extra $61 million in his
That's what I was going to ask you.
And
that's what's exactly where I'm going. Like, I don't understand why they extended him straight away.
I would think that, look, he doesn't have a non-trade clause, so they could trade for him anyway. But getting him the extra $61 million is what was going to get the deal done. And look, these contracts are all tradable. We talked about this a million times. It's not like he extended for 3 extra years. He got 1 extra year. He wanted 2 or 3 from Miami.
2 extra years. 2 extra years
in the summer.
I think it's 2 extra years.
Well, he rips up. No, not really. He rips up his player option. So they sign him to the 1-year player option. The 1 year that he got for player option, they signed him basically to that year. And then he signed him to an additional year.
Yeah.
So he gets one.
Okay.
So he gets 1 extra year. It's not terrible for them. I mean, he does have some he does bring some value. Not a lot where you're taking the contract and you could trade it for all these assets and pieces when you don't want him anymore. That's the problem. There's a contract doesn't have any value, but he has value to them because he's a tough guy that's tougher than Wiggins. He's probably more like Wiggins, as good as he is, he's just not consistent. And he's not a guy you could count on when you really need him, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. But for Miami, I think what you're seeing out of Miami is I think a few of these teams made these trades where they bring back multiple players where they could just add to their depth. They're going to need all the firepower they can going forward, if they want to make a playoff push. They haven't been the greatest of teams, but they need extra guys to go. Look, Wiggins could give you everything Jimmy can offensively. He could give you more shooting. He can give you more of that, more skill like that. He's not going to give you the toughness, the defense that Jimmy gives you. But then you've got, Davion Mitchell and some other pieces that you got in the move that can get you, maybe get you, extra talent and firepower off the bench. I thought they were going to keep Schroeder. Obviously, I was wrong. Good for Miami, but we'll see what happens going forward. But yeah, I agree with you. Spacing, lineups. You're probably going to see some Buddy Hield, in the lineups, even though he hasn't been great.
Has to be.
Yeah, but you need some shooting to spread the floor and things like that. But I don't hate the deal. It's not a terrible deal, but it's just something that
it was 35. It'll be an interesting. 36. You give him that kind of money. I would have loved to have just. I guess part of the deal was. Do you think really, Pro, if he got traded there? Obviously, these for fans' perspective, there's these negotiations happen before you traded somewhere. Hey, I'll consider coming to Golden State in this trade if you guys extend me. That's generally how those deals are done behind closed doors. But if Golden State said we're still trading for you, but you'd have to report at that point. Like I know it's a risk with Jimmy and throwing his toys out of the cot. But I would have loved to have just keep that, let that player option sit there and just see how it fits. See how it fits for the 3 or 4 months, and if it fits well, you compensate him. But it's neither here or there. Moving on, Cavs trade. They trade for DeAndre Hunter. They give up Karis LeVert, Georges Niang, 3 second-round picks and 2 pick swaps. So a good deal for the Cavs. I mean, they lose a bit of shooting, but a nice piece there. The rescinded trade, the Lakers acquire Williams from the Hornets. So it was Mark Williams to the Lakers, which was a big, big move, and it would have solidified their 5 spot for Connect, Cam Reddish, 31 unprotected first round pick and 30 pick swap. It was reportedly rescinded because there was some cash that didn't match. Was that the reason?
It was reported.
No,
Mark
I think no, it was a
Williams
blown
didn't-
physical.
Yeah, didn't pass his physical.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Yeah.
Multiple problems, not the initial thing. I think the initial problem he's been having this year is either a foot or a knee or something. Whatever it is, they discovered multiple issues that came up in the physical, in the rescinded the trade.
Okay, because that's big for the Lakers. Like you said, now buyout market plays real important to them. So that's an interesting one.
But
yeah, go ahead.
no, imagine Bogues, though. I dealt with this. I don't know if you've ever dealt with it on your teams you've been with. We had Marcus Banks when I was the Celtics. I think we were going to trade him for Gary Payton, and we traded him. The trade got rescinded, but we still had like another day or so, but he had to come back. He had to come back to our team, knowing that he was going to get traded again.
Yeah.
Have you ever dealt with that with a teammate,
Nah.
Bogues, where someone got traded and come back?
Nah, not traded and come back. Nah. I remember there was a Tyson Chandler one as well. I think when I was playing, was it OKC?
Yeah. It was a toe. It was a toe injury. Yeah.
OKC, right? And they rescinded it, and he went out to go back to Charlotte or something. I haven't, but that's super awkward. Like super, super awkward. But I guess you kind of know you're on the table and you're about to get traded. But man,
imagine Pelinka trying to dap up fucking Connect when he comes back off that plane.
You're still that guy, bro. We still love you. We rescinded it because
we're
we
a
love
family,
you, not because of Williams.
Family.
The Bucks made a move, which was interesting. Kyle Kuzma, who's probably his worst career splits, I think, that he's had since he's been in the NBA, shooting it really poorly. The Bucks get Kuzma, Sims, a 25 second round and a 26 second round for Chris Middleton, AJ Johnson, and a 28 first round pick. To the Wizards, the Knicks were involved as well. They get Dion Wright via the Bucks, draft rights to Hugo Besson, cash consideration, Spurs, Patrick Baldwin Jr. via the Wizards, and some cash. Interesting that the Bucks gave up on Middleton, shooting really good splits this season, shooting it really well. Obviously, injury concerns. He will most likely be a buyout option, I believe, which is the other thing. Now the Wizards will likely buy him out, I assume, and he's going to probably end up on a contender playing you in the playoffs. Kuzma to the Bucks, really hot, cold guy, can change a game with the way he shoots the ball. Put him next to Giannis with some small ball lineups with Giannis at the 5. Could work, I don't know, but he's shooting. He was in purgatory in Washington, which is in a great situation, and trying to find his spots with some shoot-heavy guards. But head scratcher for me. I just don't know what the thinking is for the Bucks long term with this one. I thought Middleton was a kind of a steadier for them on the perimeter. If Dame doesn't have it going, Giannis obviously is providing his power inside. You need another perimeter threat that you can throw the ball to that shoots at high clips. Middleton was that guy, injury or not. But they get a younger player in Kuzma compared to Middleton. I'm not sure what the deal is there, but the Wizards likely will probably buy out Middleton, right?
Well, the only issue that comes up is Middleton's owed $34 million on a player option next year. So, they'll have to. If they want to buy him out like that, they could probably stretch him. So stretching is basically, again, they may have changed the rule on stretching, but so say you're owed, say, $60 million, right? If you're owed $60 million on a stretch for 2 years, you multiply the years by 2 plus 1. So instead of paying $60 million over 2, you pay $60 million. So 30 and 30, you'd pay $15 million for 4 years on your sheet. So, basically you buy him out. Usually you buy him out minus a prorated vet minimum. So he could sign to a vet minimum on the buyout. So, but they could stretch him out. I believe they can, which would be whatever's owed to him. I think there's probably like $45 million owed. It's probably about $15 million for this year and $35 for next. So it's like $50 million. You could stretch him out $10 million for 5. So it'll look better on your sheet if you really care about that. But yeah, it's probably going to be a buyout. I've heard his injury problems really, I guess some of the players and coaching staff got really frustrated with him. Look, it's a frustrating thing. He's dealt with a lot of injuries. He's been a big part of that team. Look, he's been there before even, the whole championship thing came. He's a big part of that organization, big part of the reason why they won the championship a few years back. And he just got into some really bad injuries deals. And you know how that stuff is. Injuries, players want you to play, but maybe your body's not feeling it. I don't really know. I'm not there. I don't know him. But I guess that really weighed in on that decision. I like the Kuzma deal because it gives them. Look, Kuzma is not a player that you can give top 1, top 2 on your team and say, hey, here's the ball and go. And they had to do that in Washington just because they didn't have the talent. And that's a problem. I think a player like that gets problematic when it's like that. But now when you're the 4th best player or 3rd best player in a lineup, I think that really helps because now he could just play off, play out of space, just catch and shoot, catch and drive, transition, play hard defense, and now his role's defined. I think there wasn't really a defined role in Washington because they probably needed him to do a lot. I think it really adds to them, and I'm not a huge Porter Jr. fan, but trading for him as well, getting a couple of players they could boast their, they were a little, their bench hasn't been the greatest. So I do like Kuzma in that fact that he's got a defined role now, playing behind Giannis, behind Lillard, even in some instances behind Lopez. So now he's like the 3rd or 4th best player on the floor. It just takes a lot of the pressure. We've all been around those players that can't have a big role in the team where it won't go well, right? It's like eating, you look at him, it's like just he ate a snow cone too fast sometimes when he's on the court. It's just the ball flies everywhere, bad shots. But remember when he was on the Lakers and he had a defined role, on that team, I think that he was very good and very solid for that.
You could have him as a gunner off the bench. You could have him, a 3rd, 4th option in the lineup. If he gets his 3 ball back to a respectable percentage, could help them, especially in a playoff series. The Hawks trade Bogdanovic to the Clippers for Terrence Mann, Bones Highland, and a 25, 26, and 27 second-round pick. I like that for the Clippers. They get a bit of bench scoring with Bogdanovic. Has been hurt a little bit. Don't have to get into that one. The Bucks get Porter Jr., Clippers receive Marjon Beauchamp. Porter Jr. falling out again. A favor with another team. He moves on. What else do we have here? So the Suns deal Nurkic to the Hornets for Nurkic and a 26 first round for Cody Martin, Micic and a 26 second round pick. The writing was on the wall for that one. It's pretty obvious. Wiseman and cash considerations to the Raptors for a second round pick for the Pacers. Cody Zeller and a 28 second round pick to Houston for the draft rights to Alpha Kaba. Reggie Jackson goes to the Wizards, 26 first round pick for Jared Butler, 27, 28 second round pick and 2 second round picks. What else do we have here? Valanciunas goes to the Sacramento Kings for Sissoko. I hope I said that right. CD Sissoko and 2 future second round picks. Theis goes to the Thunder, then gets waived. I don't know. I thought they would have kept him just to have some Holmgren insurance, but they didn't. They waived him already.
Heard he's going overseas.
Okay. And Pelicans receive some cash for that. Caleb Martin to the Mavs for Quentin Grimes and a 25 second round pick. Just a couple of pick swaps between the Hornets and the Thunder. Nothing there. And then we spoke about everything else. So that's kind of where everything's at. I mean, I think it's the busiest trade window in a long, I can't remember what number I saw, but it's in a long time. It's the most trades that have happened in a long time, especially considering some of the names involved.
Yeah, and I think the Porter deal, a lot of these deals, not a lot, a few of these deals, teams did the deal to get them out of the apron. So like for the Clippers, and they made some deals, especially the Porter deal, I believe. What it did was it got them under the apron, so now they could sign Ben Simmons to their deal because obviously he's higher than mid-level, getting what he was getting. So some of these small deals to really not bring back salary is to maybe send it to a team that had cap room to absorb it, had some space, or just save some money on the percentage. Like I think you're allowed 25% plus minus on your deal. So some of these deals were made just to get them under the tax, under the apron, So, that allowed them to sign Ben Simmons. So some good cap movement from the GMs, and making some of these, like I call them money laundering deals, just to get money off your books to free yourself up to do some stuff.
100%. Yeah, that's just as important as trading for a talented player these days, is knowing the money ball, quote unquote, cap situations. So some of these gurus with analytics and the data sheets and you got to be right across it, which gets pretty tricky for some of us guys that are just more into the basketball talent. You got to have someone by your side that knows all the numbers. All right, Pro, something you probably didn't know, but Kendrick Perkins was the leader of the Thunder back when there was KD, Russ, and James. I wasn't aware of it, but he's let the world know. He's not shy to tell the world that he was the leader of that team. It doesn't mean your best player was your leader. It wasn't KD or Russ. It wasn't James. I was the one leading. So, I mean, that maybe we attributed the success to the wrong people there at the Thunder Pro.
Did you see that KD? Because I sent this to you.
Yeah.
I think I sent it to you with the KD. KD answered it on or replied to it on the social media.
He's seen a lot of crazy shit on the internet, and this was the most craziest he's seen for the year or something.
Perk. First of all, I didn't know Perk was still working. I haven't heard anything from Perk in a while. Like as far as like outlandish things that he likes to say, and he loves saying outlandish things. He loves saying, like in Boston, he was a franchise player, max player, coming out of high school into the draft, and they pigeonholed him and they held him back. He said stuff like this. He just can't help himself saying things like this. And look, I wasn't in Oklahoma City, so I don't know, but I know he was a little older than those guys, not by much, but he was a little bit older. I know he had a sort of a veteran leadership role in some of the other teams he was at. But yeah, that's very interesting comments. And it's just, you shake your head at some of the things that he likes to say. But I think what happens is he just loves attention, and he loves saying things that are going to get him clicks. And he just loves that attention and, just the spotlight on him. And, he's as delusional as they come, unfortunately. But yeah, I can't see that being true. But again, I wasn't there.
Yeah, just wild. I mean, we all look at our careers differently to what they were, both good and bad, once you retire. But he's got a super inflated view of how his career went. I feel like I'm pretty level headed. Like I feel like I'm pretty fair on myself. Like I think it wasn't this top tier star. I wasn't the bottom. I kind of was in the middle for the most part, with like a second tier star with Milwaukee for a little bit. But I'm happy to talk about that way and know that I also had some shitty years and some years that I could have been much better. Like I think that's a part of growing as an adult. But like in 10 years, he's going to say that, he's the reason the NBA brought in a different rule or some shit, like it's quite funny.
Bogues, like when you were in Golden State that year, you guys won the championship.
Mm-hmm.
In your opinion, who was the leader? If you had a leader to say, maybe there wasn't. Sometimes there's no leader. Sometimes everybody just does their own thing, and everybody's collectively, on top of things. But was there a leader there?
There's different forms of leadership, I think, in NBA teams.
Yeah.
I think on that team, the rah-rah leader obviously was Draymond. I think Steph was the lead by example. Clay wasn't for any of that stuff. He wasn't really a guy that would talk much about that stuff or get involved. He just kind of was more of a, just let me ball, I'll do my thing. Andre and myself were kind of similar. We'd somewhat do some things behind the scenes, especially off the court, team dinners, that kind of stuff. Andre was a master at getting to bench guys and having a chat in their ear. And so I think like Andre had a really huge influence on that kind of stuff. And congratulations to him, by the way, they're retiring his jersey down there in Golden State. So can you just double check that that's publicized? I think it is, because otherwise I'm not supposed to talk about it yet. They let me know, but I can't get out there. I'm pretty sure it's public knowledge.
I'm pretty sure it's public knowledge because I've seen that as well.
But
yeah, Sunday, the February 23rd.
Yeah, beautiful. I still want to jump the goat because the PR team said I did an interview for it a couple of weeks ago. So, but I think it was a mix. Draymond was definitely our rah-rah, hard on his sleeve leader. There were other guys behind the scenes that were a bit more quiet and subtle with the way they did things, and then he had Steph that was kind of a lead by example guy. So, look, I think Perk's point, maybe he was the physical leader, like he was the I'm going to hit you when you come in the paint, I'm going to talk shit to you. Like there is an aspect of that to an extent, but to outright say he was the leader, and look, I think probably on that team the rah-rah leader was probably Russ. Looking at it from afar, I think James was definitely a lead by example guy and quiet guy off the bench on that team, and KD was between Russ and James, I think, personality-wise. So that's how I would look at the
All right, hold
Thunder.
on, Bogues. I'm getting something on social media. Jeremy Tyler just tweeted out, I was the real leader on the 2012-2013 Golden State Warriors. Fuck Steph and fuck Draymond.
That's
So,
actually a guy
yeah.
that might say that. That's a guy that might say that.
Yeah.
You picked a good one because Jeremy's got a pretty well inflated view of himself. He was my rookie there, and he was a hard guy to get through to sometimes. I hope he's doing well. I know he's with the Sydney Kings for a while as well. But anyway, yeah, Kendrick Perkins.
Yeah.
The list continues of his quotables.
Unbelievable. And it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop because he's got to always be in the limelight with stuff. And, and saying outlandish things. Look, there's people all over media, a lot of which are ex-players, unfortunately, but, a lot of people just has to say outlandish things. I don't care if you have takes. Takes are great. But when you say things that obviously the guy that was sitting right next to you, and KD gives unbelievable credit to people that deserve it. Like, he is good with that. And he would have definitely co-signed it. He was right there.
Yeah, but they've had
He
their
could've said
issues,
it.
right, for the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
This isn't the first time they've got into it. I can't remember what the first.
This isn't the first time he's made a comment about this specific team,
Yeah.
about how
KD
like
was
they,
bad or something, right?
exactly,
And then KD called him out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is what it is. All right, another gambling ring has been kind of uncooped pro, which we said a couple of weeks ago. This isn't a one-off thing when you find players. And Rozier is still playing, by the way. I don't know what the hell's going on there. He's still playing games. They haven't stood him down or anything, which is head-scratching considering the allegations. But North Carolina, A&T. Yeah, basically the quotes, they've suspended 3 players for violating team rules, but they haven't said what. There's an illegal gambling ring connected to NBA betting scandals and now being linked to a few college basketball programs. They've been the team's top scorers, so losing them is a big hit for the squad. Things got suspicious when ESPN reported that sportsbooks flagged unusual betting activity during A&T's games against Delaware, where the spread moved last minute. Delaware ended up covering both the first half and full game lines. They're not the only school caught up. Temple, Eastern Michigan, Mississippi Valley State were also mentioned, with bets being placed against them throughout the season. So, yeah, I mean, we don't have to get into this too much, pro. We know it's happening. It's happening. I wouldn't be surprised. Can you bet on high school over there?
Not yet, but
Not
I'm
yet.
sure
there
it's going to happen.
There were talks, right? I believe there were talks. But you look at these kind of leagues, like it's going to happen. If Trent's laughing about the high school thing, but these games were on ESPN. They're on ESPN sometimes. They're getting bigger and bigger. So,
well, they have these leagues, that are put together. Nike put one together that's sponsoring one that has basically every big time prep school, boarding school, and even some high schools that they come and they play in one. So there's probably 30 teams or so in this league, and there's revenue sharing and all this, and they come to one event every weekend. They'll fly somewhere to play, and they play in multiple gyms and things like that. And it's basically like that all year. They're not really in their own league anymore. They're in this national league. So I could just definitely see at some point, if it's not already being done, I'm not really paying attention to it, but I don't think it's being done yet. But some of these powerhouses, games and leagues, they're going to have betting lines. And these kids, at least there's some, when you got an NBA guy, right? An NBA guy is look, I'm not throwing away my legacy for fucking 25 grand, 100 grand, 200 grand. But you have some of these college guys for sure. They don't care. And the high school guys, especially, you start throwing 50 grand or 75 grand to a college kid. I mean, they'll definitely go with it. So I don't want to talk about it.
Factor in drug habits, factor in all kinds of shit.
Yeah.
Got dirt on you. That's usually how these people operate. But it's not great for the game, and it's everywhere. I mean, there were betting scandals in Australia in a 3rd division state soccer league about 5 years ago. I think Victorian MPL 3rd league was having weird bets coming from overseas, and they realised there was a guy throwing games. Now you can bet on everything. You can bet on crickets racing down the street, right? It's wild, and with that becomes a lot of people that are going to make money out of it. So finally, the NBA is finally committed to having a game in Australia, pro. I don't know if you heard that big news on your side of the world, but they're going to finally send an NBA team out here. It'll likely be against an NBL team, I believe. I don't think they're going to send 2 teams. So just getting one team out here has been something that has been talked about for a long, long time. With us in New Zealand, is part of the world continent that only hasn't had an NBA game on its soil. So that's pretty exciting. It's going to happen this coming preseason. Just not sure about the details of it yet, with if they will play an NBL team or if they will, do something a little bit different. So that's good news. And then also Partizan and Panathinaikos are also rumoured to be coming to Australia to play. Most likely in Sydney, we're hearing. We're not sure yet. There's still a lot to go under the bridge there, but they're planning on coming out and playing some games here too. So I think great for the game of basketball. Those two teams especially have unbelievable fans, so they'll fill out wherever that happens.
Bogues, did you hear about the NBA putting together this global league that's going to rival the EuroLeague?
Is it the one we spoke about a while ago?
No, that was Maverick Carter. This is the NBA. I guess they did maybe when they were out in France, they did this. Maybe we could talk about it in another show, but they did this. I guess they're going to start. I don't know when it's going to start, but they're going to start this this European International League. Not many teams, like 6 to 8, maybe a little more. But it's interesting because I've heard that Barcelona and Real Madrid are going to be a part of it, which would make them leaving the EuroLeague, which would, besides McDonald's taking the McRib off the menu, that will probably make me cry if those two left the league. So it'll be interesting how that goes.
Yeah, it will be. There's a lot of these league rumors popping up, which has been interesting. But as far as if you're a basketball fan in Australia, in around about September, October, there's a lot going on. So looking forward to seeing how that goes. All right, useful, useless. The highest plus minus this season, Pro. Do you know who the two players are? The highest plus minus.
Dude, I'm gonna guess Jokic. Everybody's talking about how he's monumental and breaking all these global,
he's second.
Records about it.
He's second with a plus 424.
He's second.
Yeah, with 424.
Oh wow, there's somebody worse than him, better than him.
Yeah.
Giannis?
No, SGA. SGA is get this, Pro. So SGA is a plus 640. Jokic is a plus 424. So what is that? I'll do some quick math here.
10, 12 games, 15 points.
216 difference between first and second or plus minus in the league, right? Shea first 640, Jokic 424. No, is my math wrong on that? No, that's right. Yeah. Okay. So the gap between first and second, between Shea and Jokic for plus minus, is bigger than the gap between second and 30th in plus minus in the league, bro.
Jeez.
Useful.
That's crazy. That's useful, man. That's. I'm not a big plus minus fan kind of guy, but that is pretty astonishing number for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
That's definitely
dominating.
useful.
They're dominant on the floor, those two guys. And Jokic, for a team that's middle tier in the West, shows how valuable he is. And you hate for him to have an injury. And then Shea with that deep squad they got over there, young fun squad, still need him as their closer on the floor to win games. But 640, we're not even at the halfway point of the season, or at the All-Star break of the season, is pretty amazing. All right, last one. Players to average 10 points a game, 10 rebounds a game, and 1 steal per game as a Sun, Pro. There's only 3.
As a Phoenix Sun?
Yes. 10, 10, and 1 steal.
10, 10, and 1 steal.
Minimum, right?
Yeah. Steve Nash?
No.
No?
10 rebounds.
Holy shit. Oh, 10 rebounds. My bad. I'm going to guess Sean Marion.
1.
Oof. I didn't think. Stoudemire?
No. Charles Barkley's 2. And 3 is Yusuf Nurkic. He's in great company, Pro. 10, 10, and 1. Only 3 players have done it in Suns history. Useful, useless.
Useless, because I hate these number games. You know what useless is? Useless is asking me these trivia fucking questions of who these guys are, because I might be one of the worst of all time. By far, one of the worst of all time.
You got a week between podcasts, mate. Study up.
Awful.
It just makes it fun to give how wild of an answer you said. Like, I'm surprised you didn't say, like...
I mean, Steve Nash.
I love being
Steve Nash was pretty bad for 10 rebounds.
Well, you said 10, 10, and 1. You didn't say what it was. Yeah, I probably would have said, like, Kevin Johnson. I would have said so guys like that for sure. Danny Ainge.
Yeah,
he was a Phoenix Sun for a while.
Nurk was perceived as super bad there and whatever, and exited poorly. Still some decent numbers, but a useless stat there to get that 1 steal. I think if you take that steal away, there's a lot more. Aussie of the week. It's not going to be Jock Landale, Pro. Sorry. One
Well,
good
he
game.
stood me up,
It's
so
week.
go fuck himself.
Aussie of the week, not Aussie of the one game.
Got it.
Giddy played some 4 actually the last week, bro, which I found interesting. They played him at the 4 a little bit, at least on the stat sheet. In some games, they had him off the ball, which isn't a bad option because you can create some mismatches there. But he was 18 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, but their team went 1 and 2 for the week. Dyson Daniels was 16 points, 7.2 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, and they had a 2 in 1 week. So I'm giving it to Dyson Daniels. And our now leader is Dyson Daniels with 6.
I'll tell you what, Bogues. That guy has come out of nowhere.
He's come into his own before our very eyes. He's slowly, like the assist numbers and the rebound numbers were low earlier in the season when he was getting these big steal games. He had his first 10 assist game not long ago. He's just slowly putting it. You can see it all just starting to come together. That next piece is he gets that 3 ball to mid-30s. The game changes for him completely. He could be a potential 20-point scorer in the league if he can get that 3 ball down because he's so long and athletic getting in the paint. You know, the teams are daring him to make that 3. If he can get that to a respectable mark, bro, he's got a chance.
Yeah, I think he's a guy that you just didn't know about, especially once he starts getting traded. You just didn't know. You know, he had a slow first year, and then he gets traded. You're like, oh, fuck, Atlanta, geez. You know, and then he just started with these huge stale games. And, just an elite. He's an elite winning player. Now, is he a great player? No, but he definitely impacts winning, and he's a definite starter in the league. And now Atlanta just has to figure out how we're going to get, what are you going to do with Trae Young? And then, but whatever we do, obviously we got to get guys that are going to be in our 1, 2, and 3. And then he's our like fourth option kind of guy. He's going to be a staple. He wins. The guys like that are really hard to find. And, you think it's easy because he's not like a LeBron or a KD or something like that, or a Luka, but those types of guys that you could cement in your starting lineup, they could be an elite at one skill is real, and then get them under contract for a while. I think that those guys are hard to find, and he's done a great job sort of streamlining his career into something that's really successful. He's good.
Yeah, I agree, and he's getting better in those other attributes, so hopefully he keeps improving. And selfishly for the Boomers prospects, he's going to be a huge, huge part of it. And just finally, we touched on it a little bit, but Ben Simmons obviously been bought out and has gone to the Clippers, other Aussie brethren there, but we'll be interested to see what role he plays, if at all, there in the Clippers. Pro, fact or fake news?
Bogues, you heard Steve Kerr talk about trade deadline and how it should change. I believe he was the one who was saying that he should change it to All-Star break, so now you don't have to deal with this lethargic play coming in, depending on what moves you make, coming in All-Star break. Will the NBA in the next 5 years, especially with all this stuff that's going on with Nico Harrison and all this weird stuff that's going on trade stuff, that's pathetic to be honest with you. But do you think that the NBA will change the way they address like the dates and things with trade deadline, where they move them to the All-Star break, so they don't have to deal with it leading into the All-Star break? Will they change? They will change. I guess we have to phrase it this way. They will change how they address All-Star break. Trade deadline going forward in the next 5 years.
Fact, I think it makes sense. Fact on the fact that they should do it. I think it just makes sense. It's a dead period anyway. And let everything happen then, and it gives players time to get to their next city, get to wherever they need to go. They're not going quickly to go play a game. At least there's 4 or 5 days off, and I think it makes more sense to have it, but I know the NBA loves to own the calendar, Pro. That's where they're geniuses from day dot. They own they've got something every month of the year, right? Like we've spoken about this. You talk about preseason starts in September, so you get all the hype about preseason. Then you go October, practice games start. Then you go November, marquee matchups to open the season, all that kind of shit happens. And then you've gone to the Christmas Day. They've generally owned that for the last however long, even though football's coming for them. Then you've got some, January is generally a decent year. I think they've got Chinese New Year and a few other things. And you've got Black History Month, trades, and All-Star game in February. Then March, you're ramping up for the playoffs. April, May, June, playoffs, finals, draft, lottery May, draft June, July, summer league. You know, every month of the sporting calendar for a league that has an off season of 3-4 months, they own every market. So I don't think they'll look to change, because I think they want the All-Star to stand alone and keep the trade hype buzzing into All-Star break. They're really strategic with how they do it. It would make more sense. I'd love for them to see it. But I'm going to say fake news. Will the NBA do it? No. I think fake news, they won't do it. I'd love for them to see it, though. That's a fact.
Yeah, I do think that they could probably do it. If they were going to do it, they can do it till like the Wednesday before All-Star weekend. Then you got your All-Star weekend. Well, like you said, though, because they're naming the teams and stuff, maybe that messes that up. But it's still February, so they could still do it, get away with it, and just push it up a couple weeks and have their deadline like the Tuesday before All-Star break, and then because now teams play up to the Thursday, so you'd only have to deal with this for a couple of days, and then you got All-Star weekend. I don't know, we'll see, but I think this was an anomaly as far as what types of trades were made at the deadline. You never know, but I don't foresee a trade like this happening every year that we've seen with the Davis and Luka deal, but it'll be interesting. I would say fact. I'd say they're going to change it just because I do think they like sort of tweaking rules and things like that and regulations and, being cutting edge. I'd say fact, in the next 5 years, you'll see some type of change with it, but who knows?
We shall see. We shall see. All right, Pro. Go down there to American Airlines, get your picket signs up, and keep protesting, brother. We'll see you next week.
All right, fellas. Good luck seeing where the New Zealand fucking kangaroos are going to go with the, the Sydney koala bears or whatever the fuck you guys are named. But I'll see you guys later. You guys have a great show. And go Schroeder.
Adios. All right, touching on some NBL stuff. The plane is all set. We have Perth playing Southeast Melbourne in the 3-4 in Perth. In the smaller, is it Challenge Stadium, I think, whatever it's called now, the smaller stadium. Unfortunately, they couldn't get in their main arena, which sucks for Perth. You only fit 4,000 or 5,000 in the alternate arena. So I will pick Perth in that one. Trent, who you got?
Yeah, Perth.
Perth at home?
Yeah.
Okay. Sydney, Adelaide, I'm automatically have to pick Sydney, even if I don't think they're going to win, but I have to go Sydney and support our guys. Who do you think will win the 5-6?
I think Sydney take it just for the same reasons I said last week. I just think rotating 7 guys is going to probably take a toll on a lot of those guys, and I think heading into this game, Adelaide just haven't been strong to finish the season as they have kind of been throughout the mid-season. So if I had to take my pick, I'd pick in Sydney in this one.
Okay, interesting call. Moving on from that, we will go through the MVP list that is released by the NBL and the awards list right now. Candidates for the MVP: Bryce Cotton, Chris Golding, Casey Prather, Jalen Adams, Kendrick Davis, Montrezl Harrell, Matt Hurt, Parker Jackson Cartwright, Sam Froling, Tyler Harvey, Trey Kell III, and Xavier Cooks. Did I need to read any of those other names other than Bryce Cotton to you, Trent?
No.
Yeah.
It's not close.
This whole, Kendrick Davis is making a run for it. They're in 6th. Please. It's Bryce's, and then there's daylight between Bryce and second place. It's his award. Most improved player: Ben Henschel, Quat Noi, Owen Foxwell, Sam Wardenberg, Taron Armstrong, Tyrell Harrison, Will Hickey. Who's your pick?
I don't know if you can give Tyrell the award just because I think this has been Tyrell. It's just we haven't seen him play. So he's out. Henschel, I think, big improvement, but I think it's got to go to Foxwell. I think he's the guy that, I thought he had a ceiling watching him when he first came to the league, smaller guard, but what he's been able to do from a shooting standpoint and where he's taken his game to that level, I think has completely changed how he plays the game. He's able to kind of have guys close out hard, and it really has opened the floor in the way he's able to play, make, and help Southeast win games. So I think if you're going to give it to anyone this year, it's got to be Foxwell.
Yeah, step back threes. Some of those shots I didn't expect him to do, but I'm going to go with your first candidate. I think Harrison will get it. I mean, he has been hurt. He's been up and down, put together a pretty consistent year. And when he was out there, he was dominant for him. Every game, he was a double-double guy. So I think he'll potentially get that award and give Brisbane a bit of success individually. So I think he'll get it. But I like Foxwell as well. Six-man, Cam Oliver, Ian Clark, Watnoy, Marcus Lee, Owen Foxwell, Will Hickey. Who you got?
No.
Yeah, I think that one's a pretty concrete one for most people. I mean, he's been huge for Sydney. I would even argue he could be the Kings MVP this season as a team MVP. I think with his performance, he's probably been the most consistent player from start to finish. And you kind of know what you're going to get on a nightly basis from him. But he's a six-man in my opinion. Other candidate, Ian Clark's been up and down a little bit for them. You could go on Foxwell, but his minutes were impacted a little bit by Walton Jr. Hickey's been good as well for Illawarra, so I don't think it'll be that close, but it will be interesting. The Damien Martin Trophy for Defensive Player of the Year, you've got Dellavedova, Marcus Lee, Norton, Shea Lee, Will Magnay, Wani, Swaka Lobuluk, and Xavier Cooks. Who's your guy?
I think this is probably the toughest pick out of all the awards, but if I had to pick, I'm just going to go Wani. Just number one seed. Yep. He's been super consistent all year. He usually gets the toughest matchup on any given team they play, so I think Wani's probably the guy.
I'm the same. I think, I love Shea, love the way he guards. Melbourne have three, one of the best defensive teams. They have three candidates. Norton's always a guy that's up there. Magnay, the injury probably hurt his stakes, and Cooks has been good, but not the Cooks of previous. And I think you got to give to the number one seed. Look, their defensive numbers aren't great at times, but that's just because of the pace they play at. They play so fast that they have so much shot attempts. That means by default the other team gets shot attempts. So I'm going to go with Wani. I think he's had a sensational year. Finally, the next gen award: Alex Tui, Ben Henschel, Izan Almanza, Kareem Lopez, Lockie Albright, Malik Lewis, Taron Armstrong, and Wani. Once again, so scraped into an award. It's still, what is it, 26 and under now, 25?
Yeah, unfortunately, Sam can no longer win the award, so he's out of contention. But if I have to give it to someone, I think it's definitely Tui. I think the way he's impacted winning for the Kings this year has put him above the rest of the competition. All these guys are great players, but they don't affect winning in the same way that Tui has for the Kings in particular.
Yeah, I think Tui's definitely a candidate. Put away my Sydney bias if I can't pick a King. I've liked Henschel. I've liked Henschel's growth. I think he plays hard. He's got a really nice shot on him. I think he's been a big reason why Perth have been good, because you've got a two next to Bryce that you can't help off, and I think that makes a big difference. But they're all, Lopez unfortunately was on a shitty team, so you can't really give him the nod. Armstrong's the same, was massive stats on a bad team. Wani I wouldn't have in there. Lockie Albright I wouldn't have in there, and Almanza I wouldn't have in there. So that's where I sit on all of that.
Coach of the year?
Yeah, why did I not see that?
The three I have are Vic, Tatum, and Josh King.
Who's your first?
Vickerman, Tatum, and Josh King are the three that the NBL posted.
Okay, yeah. It's not on their website for some reason. I would go with Tatum quite easily.
Yeah. I mean, the Hawks have never been number one seed.
Yeah. And they've been pretty consistent.
I mean, King deserves an honourable mention, though, because the fact that he came in and completely turned their entire season around, put him up into the third seed.
Yeah.
Incredible.
I think if he was here from the start, and just how hard it is, 0-5, on whatever they were, 1-6.
1-6 to start,
to come into a league you don't know that well, come in, implement your culture, how you want to do things, and win and get the fourth seed. I mean, arguably could have been even higher. Less of the game slipped late, like the Perth game. Very, very good job by him, and very good hiring. Good to see Southeast Melbourne get the right coach for them long term. So we'll be interested to see where all that goes. Prather has re-signed with Brisbane for 1 year. It's great to see. He's had a sensational year for him. Adams cited by the tribunal. He's received a suspended sentence and a small fine for. This was an interesting one. Him and Wani got into it. Wani went to him first and instigated it. It's a thing that everyone does now, especially in the NBA. It's that point to your face thing. And I think it backfired on Adams. He got his eyeball. So I think he's intentionally eye gouging? I don't. I'm looking at this on the fence, not being a Kings person. When you look at it's just such an American thing, right? Like you look at the NBA, whenever there's a scuffle, there's always that one guy that's pointing to someone's face. It's like a disrespectful thing to do to someone. And unfortunately, Adam Zane, you know, got it right in the hoop, poked him in the eye. So I don't think suspension worthy, in my opinion, especially when you considered Harold punched someone and didn't get a game for it.
I was going to say,
So
if we're
like,
going off
on
previous
precedents,
instances, you can't suspend him.
You can't suspend him based on what's happened previously, but very silly thing for Adams to do. You don't usually see him get that emotional with those kinds of things, but he's got to learn from that. That wasn't great. South East Melbourne owner Romy has been fined for his remarks that were since deleted on social media about referees. He can't touch referees publicly, unfortunately, as much as we'd like to at times, but they have a tough job, so you got to kind of protect them as much as possible. You got a 10K for that, I think. Dane Pernell retires. He was on my first stint with the Kings as a player. My first year, sorry, he was my backup. Just an energy guy, good vibe about him, good kid. Like, you know, we always used to have debates about certain things. He'd love to have a little bit of banter, so I enjoyed being his teammate. Retired to say he doesn't want to be a list clogger, which I found interesting because there's not a lot of Australian bigs floating out there that you can just pick up off the street. So I told him that. I said, man, like, teams need Australian bigs. You're not clogging a list at all, and you're a good veteran guy. So, but he said, nah, time is right. He'll move back to.
And he accepted your Depoy award,
yes,
right?
and the all-time greatest speech at an NBL Awards night, much to the test of Larry Kesselman, who immediately came up to me and just berated me for a couple of minutes. And then Jeremy Lowliga came up to me 5 minutes after that because I was obviously in candidate for the MVP as well later that night, and he's like, "If you get the MVP, you're going to do the speech, right?" And I'm like, relax. We're just having a bit of play with it. The whole thing behind that was Dane, the whole year, was like, hey, Bogues, if you get an award, can I do your speech? He was like, brought it up like 5 or 6 times during the regular season, right? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And the night came, right? And he's like, hey, Bogues, like, can I do your speech if you get the award? And I thought, I'm gonna put it on you. Let's see how much balls you got. Sure, Dane, you can do my speech. And then 5 minutes later, I get caught up on the stage, and I look at him and I go, "Up you go!" And he did it. I could not believe it. I didn't think he was going to do it. I was just shit talking, like, "I'll do your speech," you know. And he had it all like planned out. He must have known me well enough to know that I'd have the balls to say, "Go."
Yeah. And
it was the most awkward shit because when he got up there, everyone was like looking like, "What the hell is this guy doing?" And then he just went into character. It was from it was a Will Farrell, right? It was from the. What was that from? He gave a speech for someone or something, but it was based on that. And I enjoyed it. I thought it was funny. It gave the NBL Awards night a nice boost on social media because it was kind of a quiet awards night for the last 5 years annually. No one really knew about it. Then that went bang. And it gave them
one of the greatest clips.
Oh, the media dudes were like, we loved it.
Yeah.
Like, we can't say it because Larry's mad, but we loved it because it spiked all our socials. People like tuned in. We got a high number of people watching. So I'm like, you're welcome, NBL. But that was, definitely something to bring up. And then the Boomers are playing the Tall Blacks in a 3-game series in May. 7th in Adelaide, 9th in Sunshine Coast, 11th in Hamilton. I'm glad they brought this series back. It's a no-brainer to fit these games in. I'd like to see them annually, even if there are with a BC Boomers squad, a BC New Zealand squad. It's been a good rivalry that I was a part of in my initial phase in the Boomers when I was a young fella, and I really enjoyed it. They were physical. They turn into rugby games for spurts. There's shit talking. There's hard fouls. And it's what you want. And they're right here. So I think we get some good quality games there, which is really good. And just finally, I just want to go through the bottom 4 teams and just give our honest kind of opinions on how that's all gone in the NBL this season for them. So, you know, bottom of the table, we start with Cairns. Look, I think Cairns were a little bit unlucky. I've been on record. I think the injuries, they weren't as bad as their record. They were fighting at the start of the season. They were inconsistent. They were up and down, and they hit that spurt where they lost, I think it was 15 straight, was it? Or something like
15, 16.
And they just couldn't salvage that. That shouldn't have been 15. They should have won a couple of those games, but at one point they had to call in injury replacement imports. Like, it was bad injury-wise for them. I don't think they would have been championship winners, but I had them closer towards the 6 because I just thought they'd be okay if healthy. But 8-21, I think you just write it off, mainly on injuries. They got to rebuild their roster. Armstrong's a free agent. There's rumors he might go overseas. Will he stay in the NBL or does someone else go and get him? A decent roster. They can probably make some tweaks to it. I don't think the imports were horrible. I thought Groves was a solid role player for him. Edwards a bit fiery. Maybe that's probably what gets him out of the door, but brought some shit to him, and they found some stuff with who was the young guy?
Alex Tiggins.
Yeah,
DP they had.
DP was really good, so they found a gem there. They can bring on their full time roster as a role player, but just probably not a deep enough roster, even if healthy, to really make a championship run. But the injuries just kneecapped them.
Yeah, exactly. You know, Menenga's a big, not Menenga, sorry. Wardenberg's a big piece for them. And him going down, like he's one of those guys at his age can really affect the game in a lot of ways. And, you know, Armstrong really like come into his own. It was like a weird spot for them, whether or not they're developing players, but they've got all these imports that they've signed. They're trying to win. So it's like, it was a weird mixture of like, what is the plan here with Cairns this year? So, I mean, all that in factor, there's like a lot of question marks going into this off season for them with coach. How do you restructure this team? Like there could be a repeat of events next year, or that we could see a big improvement from them.
Yeah, it will be interesting. And then they've got some good young pieces that teams will always go and try to poach as well. So, and the 40 thing, does 40 remain? I know he's contracted, but there were rumours he's looking over to Asia. So it'll be interesting to see where Cairns goes there. New Zealand, who finished second last at 10-19. I mean, everything for them changed when they made that move. I mean, I'm not saying they would have been a top 6 team still, but they would have been better than 10-19 at the time of the deal.
They were winning games.
Playing
like
well.
They were a top
grinding
4
out
team.
games.
Yeah, like
I don't think that was sustainable. I still didn't have New Zealand high up there preseason, but they might have been.
You could see
battling
them
Adelaide.
For that 6th.
Yeah, exactly. And
sure.
I think that change. I was on record. It changed their style of play. They had a role playing big who blocked shots and was athletic. It opened up scenes for Jackson Cartwright, for Mooney, for these guys. And Taco Fall's a great player in his own right, but I just don't think it fit that squad. And I know it was a management decision more than a coaching decision. There was some frustration there. But you hope New Zealand gets it right. A storied franchise. We love having New Zealand part of the league. You need them to be somewhat successful, I think. And that was just how one little decision completely changed the trajectory of their season. But, yeah, I think they can almost go in for rebuild mode. There's rumours that Fall has a year left on his deal, but might leave anyway. I've heard that as well. So who knows where that's all going to go? But this season, I think that move was not a great one.
Yeah, and it's almost unlike New Zealand to make a move like that. Like, especially with a guy like Taco, you know what you're going to get. It almost seemed more like a tickets move in terms of getting butts in seats than it was an actual like trying to win games move. So. Yeah, it obviously didn't work. Experiment didn't work, and almost was strange to see New Zealand make a move like that. Because historically, they
didn't expect to be that good, and they were like, "Oh shit, we're better than we thought we were." And the Taco thing came up, and you know, I mean, he was good, but it was contradictory. It was contrary to the style of play they played. I felt, and especially you probably want more of a half court point guard if you're going to run that style of play with a 4 thrown inside a lot. Yeah. It's really slow, but it was like when he came out of the game, they played a different style, and then when he was in the game, it was a whole different style, and that was something they had to deal with. Brisbane, look, I thought they were better than last season. How much better, I don't know. I think they still have some issues around the way they play. They were notoriously a low assist team, which I spoke about on telecast. I did a lot of their games. They were very, very one pass orientated, ISO orientated. They were not a team that moved the ball well, that had high assist games. They just kind of, one kick ahead, dribble. If I don't have it, I just throw a grenade to someone, and then they try to create, and it showed on their assist numbers. Sometimes they'd have 15, 20 field goal made with 4 assists. That's what they need to fix. They need to try to get the ball moving a little bit more. I think they played a very isolation style. I like Tyrell Harrison. You just got to stay healthy. I like his growth. I think he's a legitimate top 5 big man in this league, as long as he can stay on the floor. Their imports came good at times. I think they had a decent mix, and then the injuries came. Bateman, I think, was starting to come into his own a little bit. I was worried about him at the start of the season, but they were okay. I think they probably let slip some games that they shouldn't have. Early on in the season, they were complaining about the 1 game a week. They couldn't get their rhythm, and then all of a sudden, when the double headers came, they pissed on their own feet, right? Like, that's when it all kind of went downhill. So we'll be interesting to see what changes they make. I like the Casey Prather reacquisition, and for a year. I think they paid him overs for that 1 year, but it gives Brisbane some security because the worries were his health. He's had 1 healthy year out of the last 4 or 5, but when he's healthy, man, he's a game changer. And, he he was, he's an All-NBL candidate in my opinion, even though they are towards the bottom, probably second team just because they didn't do too well. But he was a game changer. His last 3 quarters of that season, he played at an elite level. So I like that they've kept him. They got Harrison there. Now they can kind of sprinkle around some imports around that, and we'll see how we go.
Yeah, I also really like Bannon for them as well moving forward. I think he's a great young player. He plays the game the right way. Never seems to. He doesn't thrive in that isolation offense. I think if he was to have a better system around him, he would look a lot better than he is. But just love the way he plays the game, and I think he's a great piece for them moving forward. And yeah, I think with the Bateman early, I was questionable whether or not he was a good fit for them defensively. Would give up at times if he wasn't getting his shots and stuff, and then he goes down as soon as he starts finding that rhythm. Yeah. So
as a 50 ball, saves himself.
Exactly. So for them, Prather is a great signing for the next year. But those 2 import spots, the way the team's structured, they heavily rely on those imports that they bring in. So it'll be interesting to see if they keep Adams, what sort of direction they go.
I don't think they keep Adams. I think that was kind of he was a mercenary somewhat to try and save their season. Rocco's the other interesting one, whether he goes, whether he comes back for another year. I highly doubt he comes back for another year. I don't think he enjoyed the season. Didn't look like he was enjoying his role and his minutes, and probably didn't get the opportunity that he would have liked, and then obviously had the injury. I think that was part of the psyche of just saying, you know what, I'll shut it down, just get ready for the draft, which I think selfishly for him is probably the right decision. I don't think he comes back to the NBL this next season, but where he gets drafted is a question. He's probably, people saying he's a second rounder now and locked in for a second round. So
yeah, would it be like a Travers situation where he does get drafted
and gets stashed back here?
Yeah, kind of plays a year or 2 here.
Maybe, but I think he'd have reservations going back to Brisbane. I think with the current situation, this isn't. I don't know anything behind the scenes. This is just me observing. It just didn't look like he was enjoying his basketball out there. Some of that could be on him, some of it could be on the team, the coach. I don't know. It just didn't look like it progressed the way he would have liked. Maybe some frustrations about it's not going the way he thought it would have liked. He's not ready yet to take that massive step. But where is he at? Who knows? But he will get drafted. It's a matter of where, and it's a matter of what happens post that draft. Do they bring him in? Do they say, stay in Australia for another year or 2? You're still in your teens. We want some more development. Get in the weight room. Who knows? Who knows where that goes? Does he look to Europe as a stash? I don't know. I don't know where that all lies, but he definitely needs to get in the weight room and just get a bit more toughness to him because if he's with his skill set and his touch, he's got that at an elite level. He's got enough athleticism to get up and down. Now it's just about getting a bit stronger, making sure your body doesn't break down, and just getting a bit of toughness to yourself. But I'm excited to see kind of where he goes. You can't teach 7'4" with a touch, right? Like you can't just pick that up off of the street. So it will be interesting to see where that goes. And just finally, Tassie, probably a little unlucky with their injury run as well, you could say. I mean, they had they started off kind of bad and then had that massive win streak. I think they won 7, 8, 9, 10 games in a row at some point in the mid-season. Then they fell off a cliff injury-wise. Magne goes down the broken toe. McDonald goes down, comes back. Then I think went down with an ankle or a knee, and then went down with a shoulder or vice versa. So after he come back, so he was out. They noticeably changed their style of play during the season, which I found interesting, and I think it was a great adjustment by Roth. He really went from playing in the 60s, 70s for the most part of the last couple of years, trying to play in that style, really limit possessions and drag it out and make it a boring game. That's how we're going to beat you. To realising the way the league was refereed and played this year, I need to change it. And they started getting closer to 90s, 100s at times, and really their offense changed. But Milton Doyle was the big one. He just couldn't find consistency for him. That was the one guy you looked at where you're like, that's the guy. When he was on, or even just moderately on, just giving him 15 or 20 at a decent clip, even being aggressive and shooting a poor clip, he would disappear at portions of games, and I think that's what hurt him. I think Majuk was key for him again. His injury hurt them as well in the tail end, and they go down by percentage. They're 13-16 tied with Adelaide, and they lose by 2 percentage points, which is something that I spoke about with Derek Rucker with John Casey on a telecast. Is do you guys think someone's going to miss out on percentage? And they were both like, "Yep, 100% someone's going to miss out by percentage," and Tasmania missed out by percentage.
I think they can hang their hats on this season. I don't think this reflects poorly on how they performed as a team. I think the fact that they were still in the hunt despite all the injuries they had, like Sean and Will are massive outs 100%. For that team. So, I mean, the fact that they were still in the hunt, still trying to fight for that play-in spot, like they can be proud. And I think next year, like if they can get their guys back healthy, maybe reevaluate the import situation, they're going to be right back in it, playing for a top 4 spot next year.
Yeah, tough place to play. I think they've re-signed Majuk as well.
Yep.
They got a nice mix of Australians down there, and McDonald will be healthy. A few of the other guys will be healthy. They'll be fine, and they'll have some cash to spend. So it will be interesting to see if Scott Ross remains. I think he's contracted, but you never know. There's places overseas trying to lure him over there, so you want to keep him in the league if you can. But yeah, it will be interesting to see where it all lies. They got a great home court base, tough place to play. So
they did end up signing a lot of guys in terms of their role guys to 1-year deals, like Tarangi and those sort of guys. So they're pretty wide open.
Once they lost McVeigh, and then you got the McVeigh thing. I know he's on a 2-way, but you never know. I think
if he does come back, there's only one place.
I wonder if they have his rights. Was he contracted this year in the NBL? He was. He was.
Yeah.
So they would. I don't know. I believe he signed a 3-year deal, didn't he? So he might. His rights might automatically go to Tassie if he elects to come back to the NBL, which he'd want to go to anyway. I'd assume.
Yeah.
But he's doing good things over there. Whether he wants to stay on that, whether he stays on that 2-way, you never know. These teams can change those things in the off season, like people change their underwear. So that's the other piece. Does he elect to come back? I don't know if he has a Euro passport. McVeigh maybe might have some.
From what I know,
Irish, Scottish,
grew up in Ballina.
No, probably not. That's another piece that changes their whole dynamic, and that's kind of what hurt them as well with their roster build.
Yeah. They had left that spot open.
Yeah, and the imports weren't the other import they brought in.
Sword,
and the big fella that just came in. His name escapes me. The big solid guy, lefty that they brought in late, wasn't great for him neither. More of a role player. So yeah, McVeigh will hurt them because it happened so late. It kind of screwed their roster build, which can hurt you. Like we start building our roster now. Like basically once our last game ends, we're already slowly building our roster, and then you start putting pieces together. And then if one person that you've solidified in your roster says, "I'm out," and you're like, "Oh shit!" Like we've put players that role players for that guy or whatever it is. It can kind of really hurt you, and that's I think what they went through. So they tread water okay, and they were right in it. So that's the wrap. Will be interesting to see where the Plains go. Big couple of games, and then obviously the FIBA break. So there's not much NBL on post this next weekend, and we'll see how it all goes in the FIBA break. So get out to an NBL game this next week and buy some tickets for the upcomers. There's some Boomers games as well. I think is it Traralgon?
Yeah, Traralgon.
Yeah, Traralgon against Thailand, I think.
Thailand and Indonesia, maybe.
So it'll be a absolutely close physical encounter there.
Well, they've qualified it. This is the stuff that escapes me. Like Australia have qualified for that.
Keep playing. Have to keep playing it. Yeah, but they'll be unfortunately some. We want to support the game. There'll be unfortunately be some blowouts. I think there. No disrespect to those nations. Not basketball nations, but we got to tick that box because we're part of the Asia bracket. So get out to those games if you're in that area down near Sale and Moe, down New Mould Stomping Grounds. Get out and enjoy those games, and we'll see you all next week.